Just wanted to take a moment to thank you for listening to Sidebar Forever. If you like the show, please subscribe to us at sidebarforever.com, as well as share episodes of the podcast on your social media. That way, new listeners can find us as well. You've heard of the face that launched 1,000 ships, right? Well, today, we're discussing the movie that launched 1,000 other movies. And some of them weren't half bad either. On this episode of Sidebar Forever, we're talking Die Hard, one of the all-time great action movies. But more specifically, the tsunami of copycat movies that came after it. You know the ones. The elevator pitch was something like, it's Die Hard, but on a blank. All the same characters, same story beats, same dialogue, and definitely the same ending. The villain must die. And again, some of the copycats were pretty entertaining and became neo-classics and cult favorites in and of themselves. Up for today's discussion are Toy Soldiers or Die Hard at a School, Sudden Death or Die Hard at a Hockey Game, Passenger 57, one of the many Die Hards on a plane, Speed, Die Hard on a bus, White House Down, Die Hard at the White House, and 5 more, along with a couple of honorable mentions, of course. I'm Adrian Johnson. I'm going to count to 3. There will not be a 4. As Swain and I chop up our 10 favorite movies that are basically Die Hard.
The thing about the conversation we're going to have today is, and I started trying to think, okay, so Die Hard has definitely influenced literally just a plethora of copycats and imitators. And
yes,
there are movies that are imitating Die Hard that don't even know they're imitating Die Hard.
Correct. Yeah.
You know, that came around later, I'm sure. But I was trying to think of another movie of this type that has launched 1,000 different imitators and copycats. Certainly Star Wars has created a bunch of copycat Star Wars movies.
Yeah. I would say something like an Indiana Jones. Like after Raiders came out in 81, you saw just a bunch of 30s adventurers movies, and they all had the same aesthetic. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then the other thing I would say too is once you had like those going back to Vietnam movies, like, you know, Rambo and Missing in Action, all the 80s. I grew up on all that stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. And I was trying to think of some others. Maybe Terminator.
Oh, yeah.
You know, where you get like Cyborg and Universal Soldier. And even into modern day, you know, Anthony Mackie did a movie recently called, I think it's called Outside the Wire, where he's like part cyborg or whatever.
Okay, all right.
It's not great at all. As a matter of fact, I didn't even finish it.
Oh, no.
But that was one. And then that movie I was telling you about called Upgrade.
Okay.
It's a Blumhouse movie, and it was written by the guy who wrote, I think he wrote the Saw movies, and he wrote Book of Eli, maybe something like that. I might be getting that mixed up. But he actually wrote it and directed it. And it's essentially a guy who loses he's a paraplegic.
Yeah.
And somebody puts the software in his spine or whatever. And, he's able to do all the stuff. But definitely, man, Die Hard has absolutely, as one of the early 80s, the staples of action movies, and a particular kind of action movie. And shortly thereafter,
yes,
everybody in Hollywood, not everybody, but certainly many producers and studios said, we got to get some of that Die Hard movie, especially like when the second one came out and it was successful.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hell yeah. It's on and popping.
Yes. And there was a trend in Hollywood. It actually became, for a time, it became, ostensibly what could be the title of this episode, Die Hard on a blank. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
People would go into pitch meetings or whatnot saying, okay, I got this movie I want to get you guys to produce or whatnot. It's Die Hard on a blank. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah. They would refer to those as the elevator pitch, where you basically, muscle your way on the elevator with the high level executive and pitch this person a film idea before, they get down to the ground floor and get in their limousine or their Benz or whatever and then drive off and you never see them again. And so people, the idea that people would say, okay, it's like Lord of the Rings meets Terminator. It's like Terms of Endearment meets, Unforgiven. It's
Damn.
like, these weird, just crazy combinations. And in some cases, obviously, it's like, man, get out of here.
Yeah.
But, in some cases, it quite possibly works. And the thing about the Die Hard as a template is the Die Hard movies themselves, at least the first two, were essentially John McClane in Towering Inferno. And then it's John McClane in Airport.
Yes.
Then of course, it gets by the third movie, it's just John McClane Saves New York or some shit,
Yeah.
And the ones after that don't even exist, so we don't have to talk.
Yes,
about
exactly.
That.
I don't even know what happened.
But let's start with 1991, and you and I were in total agreement on our top 10 list. Like literally, I wrote down a top 10 with a few honorable mentions, and then when you text me, I was like, "Oh, this is almost my list exactly."
Exactly.
But 1991 with Toy Soldiers, which starred Will Wheaton and Sean Astin, and Lou Gossett Jr. Right?
That's right. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now, what was the plot of that? Because I've only seen that maybe twice in my time, yo.
Oh man, I went to go see that in the movies with my mom, man.
Hey, man, shout out to your mom, who is your movie road dog, yo. She was down for it all, yo.
She sure was, man. I rolled with her, man. But yeah, saw it in movies in 91, and basically it was this new kid comes to this prep school, this upscale prep school, and it's a boys' school. So the boys that are there, they're getting into, mischievousness or whatnot. So this new kid, come to find out, we find out his father is actually this drug kingpin, and this is so crazy. So the father comes to this school, him and his henchmen, his cartel or whatnot, and they take over this school. I forget why, but they're just in there, and they're holding the school hostage.
Right.
And, like I said, it's upscale, so, all these boys here, their families are rich and very, very well-to-do, So he's like, if you don't, do whatever, I'm going to, start killing these hostages or whatever like that. And Lou Gossett is on the side of the authorities negotiating with him. But meanwhile, Sean Astin and Will Wheaton, but mostly Sean Astin, he's the bad boy. So from inside, he's the John McClane role.
Okay.
So he's trying to do his best to thwart this drug kingpin while he and his henchmen are doing their thing. So that might be the earliest example that I can think of, that we can think of like this Die Hard on a blank, which in this case is Die Hard at a school. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And I remember seeing this. I can't even remember what the circumstance was, and it was pretty underwhelming, at least at the time. But now I kind of do appreciate the fact that you had Lou Gossett and you had Sean and Will Wheaton, in the movie, because Will Wheaton went on to Next Gen, and Sean Astin was in was he in Rudy?
He went Rudy, yes.
Yeah, he was in Rudy, and then later on in Lord of the Rings, and some other movies too.
Oh yeah.
But our next entry, Sudden Death. No, excuse me. Our next entry, Passenger 57.
Oh.
Which is, and let's go ahead and stop before we get into Passenger 57 and note that some of the movies we're going to discuss today actually kind of became kind of little cult favorites, and they were actually pretty good B-level action movies in and of themselves. You know what I mean?
For sure. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
They're definitely. It's kind of like I don't think any of these movies are better than Die Hard, but I was kind of thinking almost like Bill Sienkiewicz started out, kind of imitating Neil Adams. And then he
Yeah.
kind of went his own way and created his own fan base and his own, and kind of created his own lane. But you still see the remnants of Neil in there, way in the back. He's like a software running in the background. but you know what I'm saying? But so, and Passenger 57 is one that we love.
Oh, yes.
With Wesley Snipes and Elizabeth Hurley and Tom Sizemore, directed by Kevin Hooks of White Shadow fame.
Mm-hmm.
This was the first one where I was like, okay, this is Die Hard on a plane.
Yes.
Like, I was in the theater, like, arms folded for a second, and then after a while, I was like, all right, I'm with it.
Yeah, man. Oh, yeah. Because you know what it was, man? It follows the template. You know what I'm saying? You have this European terrorist, this bad guy played by, I think, Charles Rain.
Well, Charles Rains is the character.
That's right. I forget who the actor's name is.
Bruce Payne is the actor, if I'm not mistaken.
Bruce Payne. Okay.
Yeah.
Who was dastardly.
Yes, yo.
Perfect. Hell yeah. Oh, man, you kidding me?
Yeah. But he wasn't quite like a Dollar Tree Hans Gruber.
No.
Because he actually had a little bit of charisma where he came in, he kicked open the cockpit door and held the gun on the pilots. And he said, who's in charge here? And then the head pilot said, I am. And he shot that dude in the head.
Bam!
And he said, who's in charge here? And the co-pilot said, you are.
You are.
And I remember that was the moment where I was like, okay, he's actually got his own shit going on. I'm gonna ride with you, Charles Rain, for a minute and see what's happening.
Yeah, man. But again, it follows the template. This European bad guy terrorist comes into the scene, and he has help, from the inside with his henchmen or whatnot. And it's in this enclosed space in which the hero, the protagonist, is, trapped along with the other passengers. You know what I'm saying? And he has to use his wits to kind of do battle with this bad guy, within this enclosed space. And what I like about it too is that the film is very well paced. The plane has to land sometime, has to refuel. So while they're there, that's an opportunity to get the cast outside of the plane for a bit, and have, a great set piece there at that carnival. You know what I'm saying? And then when they have to get back on the plane to take off again, and now you got the help of more authorities that can actually, help, Wesley Snipes, or John Cutter is his character in the film, that can actually help John Cutter now. You know what I'm saying? They did a very, very good job of handling that whole cast and the plot. And it's very, very satisfying. There are more than a couple of, parts, just like in the original Die Hard, where you're like, yes, like, yippee-ki-yay mother-fucker is equivalent to always bet on black. You know what I'm saying?
Right, yeah. and even, there were a couple of other quotable lines. I think that was the other thing, too, is I knew that this movie resonated with me and my friends when we would kind of reference lines in it. So Always Bet on Black, of course, is probably the most famous and the most classic.
Right.
The other one was, I think I mentioned this before, where me and my buddy Damien will say, when Charles Rain is on the radio talking to the cops, he says, one of my men has run rogue and he has left me. You'll know him when you see him. He's a black man, very smooth and convincing.
Like, that could be anybody.
We quote that all the time. But the other one, the funny thing was when Wesley's character, John Cutter, gets on the phone, he's calling the cops, and he says, get in touch with Sal Del Vecchio. How do you spell that? He was like, D-E-L Vecchio. I don't know. Oh, my goodness. But number 3 on our list is Under Siege.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which came out in 1992.
Yes.
I forgot who directed it, but of course, Steven...
Andrew Davis.
Andrew Davis. Okay, thank you, sir. Steven Seagal, Tommy Lee Jones, Gary Busey.
Bernie Casey.
I forgot Bernie Casey was in the movie. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Bernie Casey. And this is essentially Die Hard on a ship.
Right.
On a battleship. Mm-hmm. And Steven Seagal is basically our John McClane stand-in.
Right, yes.
Where, Hans Gruber's like, this is just a party full of executives. Well, then who's doing this? this is not a security guard. Hans Gruber knows that this guy is a plant. And the same thing with Seagal's character, where he's a cook, and he says all the time, I'm just a cook. I'm just a lowly cook. That's all I am. I'm just a cook.
Yeah.
Almost sounded like he was doing like a black Italian kind of an accent, I'm just a cook, man. But, of course, we find out that he was a Navy SEAL.
Yes.
And a special ops person, and he's just taking this lowly, quote, lowly position as the cook. And, of course, he turns the terrorist whole thing upside down. But what is it that you think, because I'm trying to think, what is it that made this? Obviously, we were all Seagal's fans. And obviously, this was Seagal moving out of his normal 3-word titled movies, Above the Law, Marked for Death.
Hard to kill.
He's moving away from that. And he's actually moving into a situation like, in Die Hard, where you have the somewhat lone protagonist, our lone hero, fighting against overwhelming odds. He has a little bit of help, but it's basically him. And the same thing with Seagal, where he has a little bit of help from the young actor who plays the stripper dancer, and some of the other people on the ship.
Yeah,
basically him. But what is it about this one that stuck with you? Because the sequel was trash with Morris Chestnut.
Oh yeah, that's not even worth mentioning. Dark territory, man. But no, that first Under Siege, man, there's so much that sticks with me about that. First of all, it's Andrew Davis, who is, to me, the best director for Steven Seagal. Andrew Davis directed Above the Law, Seagal's first movie. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
he's able to give Seagal a certain type of verisimilitude that works. You know what I'm saying? That really makes him look like he knows what he's doing within this setting.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that sticks with me too is that Seagal, he's a good protagonist. You know what I'm saying? He's not going to give you a whole lot, but he gives you enough to believe that he's capable of doing whatever he's doing aboard this ship. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
The other thing that helps it too is also the details of the actual battleship, because this battleship was I believe it was the USS Missouri, if I'm not mistaken, and they were getting ready to decommission it.
Okay.
So they had the run of this real life battleship, you know what I'm saying? And the details of like, man, the one part that I love is like when Seagal hooks up with like some of his other, his fellow crewmen that have been trapped, but he finds them, and together they need to shoot this submarine that's offshore that's taking away whatever these missiles or whatever it is that they came for. It's going to be loaded onto this submarine, and that's the getaway. And so Seagal and the rest of these crewmen, they man one of these guns on the ship, right? Mm-hmm. And just the detail of like, load it, check, loading, got it, get the range, that type of thing, and he's trying to find the range of, we got to shoot this submarine. I love that because it has that military aspect of like, yeah, that went a long way to showing, okay, this character knows what he's doing. You know what I'm saying? And those little details helped. And then once again, you have the Die Hard template of this one terrorist, this bad guy, charismatic bad guy, comes on with his henchmen, and they take over this space. You know what I'm saying? Which is played by Tommy Lee Jones, an assorted henchman. You know what I'm saying? And Seagal does battle with him. But one problem, the only problem I have with this movie, as much as I love it, is that final confrontation with Steve Seagal and Tommy Lee Jones. And way offhand, it's the same problem I have with Tommy Lee Jones and Benicio del Toro in The Hunted. Stop knife fighting. Hey, Tommy Lee Jones, you can't knife fight, yo. Stop it. Stop it. Bruh, you can go get it all, bruh.
Yeah, yo. Yeah. The knife fight at the end was hardly believable because they were in like this enclosed space on the ship, maybe right there in the.
I think they were in the bridge. Yeah.
Yeah, in the bridge, in the control area. But yeah, it wasn't super convincing. But everything else, Tommy Lee Jones rocked it.
Oh yeah.
He rocked it. He was funny. He was this crazy kind of a
aged ex-hippie. Who wants to have a revolution. He's like, you know what a revolution is? It means it comes back around and around and around again.
Yeah, and the Texas accent was great. And maybe that's kind of part of it is the villain has to have an accent. Doesn't necessarily have to be European. It's just having an accent of some kind. That's, maybe uncharacteristic for villains for whatever reason. But he was great. Busey was great. I remember loving Bernie Casey and the little bit that they gave him to do.
Yeah.
But moving on to probably, this might be the greatest Die Hard honor, because number 4 is Speed, which came out in 1994.
Yes.
And first of all, just a great cast. We've got Keanu Reeves breaking out of his Bill and Ted and his kind of the image that he had prior to that. He shaves his head, so he's kind of more rugged looking. He looks like he's in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
Jeff Daniels is there as his partner, who's kind of the smarter of the two. You got Joe Morton as the police chief. You have Dennis Hopper as the bad guy. Come on, Jack. Huh? What are you gonna do, huh? Jack, huh? Don't drop it. Don't drop it, honey. It won't hurt when it goes off. You won't feel a thing. It won't hurt. Oh, I hated Dennis Hopper so much, yo. He was so good. And Sandra Bullock as the it's kind of this hapless woman who ends up driving the bus and ends up in the hands of the bad guy. But
and the whole coterie of character actors that you've seen elsewhere.
Yes.
And they're all on that bus.
Yes. Alan Ruck from Ferris Bueller.
Yes.
The actor who plays Ortiz, the Latino guy. I saw him. He showed up in something. It was something with Jason Statham where he showed up as a villain himself, and I was like, Ortiz, Gigantor.
Yeah, Gigantor.
Yeah, man. And the bus driver was Big Red from the Five Heartbeats.
Sure was. Yeah. That's right. Yes.
Yeah. So they had tons of great character actors, and this was the first one, like I said, where I was like, this is Die Hard on a bus. And it actually created, if you think about it, Speed actually as a descendant of Die Hard had other descendants after it, where it was like, okay, we put someone in a high pressure situation where the clock seems to be ticking in real time, and it's very suspenseful, and the audience is on the edge of their seat, because if this happens, we tip over into oblivion. If we keep that from happening, you're just on the razor's edge writing. So Speed kind of launched like a phone booth with Colin Farrell, where he's in this phone booth and there's a gun trained on him and the police are around and da-da-da-da-da-da. And it all kind of happens in like a 90-minute real-time sense. And then also, and this is a terrible movie, Cellular with Chris Evans and Kim Basinger.
Oh.
It was awful, yo. It was awful.
Oh, no.
But they were all like, okay, it's like Speed, where, okay, the clock is ticking and we got to keep the speed limit over this or whatever. If this call drops, and it's like, okay, a call not dropping in LA in 1990 or 2000, whatever, in early cell technology, you're running through all kinds of parts of town. There are no points in between cell towers where the call doesn't drop, and that's just it. Come on, man.
Yeah.
But anyway, I do think that that Speed did kind of launch its own kind of set of action movies as a descendant of Die Hard.
Yeah, for sure. And, the other thing, too, is that, it also, within that, it launches, the type of Die Hard scenarios within, like, these seemingly mundane circumstances. Like, what danger do you think you would have aboard a city bus?
Right.
You're just going to work, you drink your coffee or whatnot, and all of a sudden this happens. You're in the midst of this, you know what I'm saying? And I have a funny story about Speed, man, a personal but funny short story about that.
Go ahead.
When it came out, here in Atlanta, there used to be a CNN Center, and they used to have a theater down there, right?
Of course.
So, my mom, me, and my sister, we go down to the CNN Center to see the movie, okay? But me, being a punk-ass teenager at the time, and wanting to do my own thing, why did I go see the Flintstones instead? I was like, oh, no, I'm not going to see that. You know what? I'm going to go see the Flintstones.
Oh.
Bruh, the theaters were right next to each other, So I'm sitting there watching this whack-ass Flintstones, and you know how the sound systems, when they first started, they were loud.
Yeah.
So you hear through the wall, boom, 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 boom.
Right.
And then you hear like the audience, and they're like, whoa, oh, wait, God, golly. Like, dang. So we come out our respective movies. My mom and my sister, they just, minds blown. It's like, oh my God. And everybody else walking out too, it's like, damn, that shit was fire. Well, they didn't say fire back then. They probably would have said, man, that shit was tight. Man, that joke was tight, Joe, dang. And I'm up there walking out of Flintstones like, dang. And I felt like Fred Flintstone. Wop, 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 wop.
Look, you like, thanks, John Goodman and Rick Moranis.
Oh, God. But so subsequently, I did see it on video cassette, like when it came out later that year, and that was the hot one to have. That was the hot one to have. And man, when I saw it at home, I was like, damn.
Yeah, yo.
Damn, this shit is good. Holy cow.
Yeah. Even now, if you were to watch it again today, that, like you were talking about earlier with the pacing on Passenger 57, it moves. There's never a dull moment. You're never off the edge of your seat. Every time I've seen it, when it's like it would pop up on cable or whatever, I would always, no matter what scene you come in on, you're glued and you're like, oh man, like you're right back on the edge of your seat. And it literally is, no pun intended, a thrill ride. It literally is that.
Now, the other thing I wanted to mention too, now we're talking about Die Hard, the original Die Hard. Mm-hmm. If you notice, there are several things about Speed itself that are callbacks to the actual Die Hard film. For one, the director is Jan de Bont, who was the cinematographer on the original Die Hard film.
Oh, okay.
For John McTiernan. So that's why it has that really, really taut look. It has that really great look. And speaking of the look, the other thing too is that the production was designed by Jackson DeGovia, who also did the production design on the original Die Hard as well. So that's why it has that same taut look, that same great look. Like, yeah, this is well done. Mm-hmm. Also produced by 20th Century Fox, you know what I'm saying? And the third thing is, what was the third thing? The third thing was, okay, the elevator shaft that starts out the movie, Speed, where they're going up in the elevator shaft, that's the same elevator shaft that's in Die Hard, the original Die Hard. That was shot on a soundstage though, right? That's not Nakatomi. That's a real elevator shaft, to my understanding, and that's the same one. That's how they were able to get access to that shaft. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I would say two other maybe more subconscious callbacks to Die Hard, really Die Hard 1 and 2, is the beginning of Speed starts in a tall building.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And ends at an airport. Mm-hmm. Like Die Hard 2. So in a way, it kind of touches both of those films in a way. But that's really interesting, and that actually makes a lot of sense. You do find, like, I want to say maybe it was who's the fella that directed Men in Black? Is that Barry Sonnenfeld?
That's correct. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think he was the cinematographer for the Coen brothers on
Blood Simple.
On Blood Simple, yeah. And then he, of course, goes on to become a director himself. And there are tons of other examples of that that have happened. But definitely Speed was clearly pitched as it's Die Hard, but it's on a bus, Number 5, okay, we're starting to decrease in quality a little bit here.
Oh, Lord. What you got?
Number 5 is 1995's Sudden Death.
Full disclosure, this is a blind spot for me. I've never seen this all the way
You've
through.
never seen it? Oh, my goodness.
That was that period of Jean-Claude Van Damme where it was like, no, man, John, you slipping, yo. Damn, yo. No.
Okay. All right. I will say this.
Okay.
For a gentleman of your taste and of your caliber as far as, action movies, I think you should see it and you will enjoy it.
All right.
It's essentially Die Hard at a hockey game in a coliseum. It's absolutely that. Starring Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah.
Powers Booth is the villain.
Oh, well, you got me right there. Yeah.
Yeah. You all good. And actually, Dorian Harewood is in it
Oh,
as
for
one
real?
of the it's like a cop or an FBI guy or something that shows up later. He actually ends up being a traitor where he's working with the terrorists, and you don't find out till the end of the movie. And of course, he and Jean-Claude Van Damme's character, end up getting into a fight. But the quick premise of the movie is the terrorists come in because the vice president is going to be at this hockey game. Why is the vice president at a hockey game? Okay, never mind. Forget it.
Yeah.
And he's of course in the booth with the secret service, etc.
Yeah.
And Powers Booth is going to kidnap and hold the vice president and all the hostages. He's going to hold them hostage, or the other people, as hostage, and then get the money or whatever, and then like blow the place up and then slip out. It's Die Hard.
Right.
And Jean-Claude Van Damme's character is like a fireman who's now like a security guard or something. And his kids are at the hockey game, and he gets separated from them when he realizes, oh, there's bad guys or whatever. And then they get his daughter, and then and the movie literally ends with him like on a wire across the top of the hockey, the aerial part of the hockey rink, like sliding on like a zip line, and he zip lines into the booth where the president is, and then. But I will say this: it is entertaining.
Okay.
That's like a Friday night, long hard week. You put it on. You rent it at the video store. You put it on. Like you said, you order a pizza. In my case, back then, you get some root beer.
Oh yeah.
You just yuck it up and just enjoy it. And as soon as the movie's over, you forgot about it.
Yeah.
It's over. It's over.
Oh man. But now, do you know that there was a remake of that, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah. Michael J. White is in the remake.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I didn't see that, but I was talking to Warren one day, and Warren was like, "Nah, it's not the answer, dog." I think he's friendly with White. But yeah, he was like, "Nah, it wasn't the answer. It wasn't the answer at all."
Dang.
But moving on to number 6 is going to be Executive Decision, 1996, starring Kurt Russell.
Yes.
So it's not great.
Hey, now slow your roll, but go ahead.
Kurt Russell, Halle Berry, Oliver Platt is in it.
That's right.
Steven Seagal is in it.
Yeah, and John Leguizamo.
And B.D. Wong, is in it. B.D. Wong he's a character actor you've seen in a bunch of stuff, and he's in it as well. Mm-hmm. I don't remember who directed it. This was so this is 1996, so this is 5 years before September 11th.
Yes.
So back then it was game on if you wanted to have Arab or Islamic bad guys. Mm-hmm. Bad guys from the Middle East, and that's what you had in this movie. That's what you also had in True Lies.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All the bad guys were Middle Eastern guys, and then after September 11th is when you see in 2001 is when you start to see a movement towards Asian bad guys, Russian bad guys. As a matter of fact, Russian bad guys have remained in vogue since then.
Yes. Yeah.
Almost every movie you see now be it on a streaming platform or in the theaters, if it's an action movie and there's a mob, it's always the Russian mob.
Russian mob, yeah.
Yeah, it's always the Russian mob. So the Russians have yet to gain any kind of love.
They still the undisputed champs. They still got the belt.
Yeah, they're like, da. But you know what, man? I say that because the movie was just okay. The two things I remember about it the most were three things. One was Steven Seagal's character gets introduced as kind of like the head of the elite SWAT team or whatever that somehow boards this plane in midair.
Austin Travis.
Yeah, that was his name?
Yes, Austin Travis.
Oh, my goodness. But he gets killed in like the first 20 minutes.
Yeah, which was a shock. We saw this in the theater, and I remember there was a gasp in the audience. Again, I saw this from my mom. We all went when he's trying to hold this stealth fighter together, and no way they could all fit in a stealth fighter to board this plane. That's not happening. But anyway, they do.
Right.
And he's like, all right, y'all get on there. Y'all get on there. I'll hold it. I'll hold the link together. And when he couldn't hold it anymore, he lets go and he dies. And I remember the audience was like, oh,
Yeah.
Steven Seagal died?
Because you just knew Steven Seagal was going to make it to the end of the movie because that's what Steven Seagal does.
Right.
Yeah.
So, man, when he died, it took a minute. I remember the theater, all the air went out in the theater. No hyperbole. We were all just like, well, hold on. So who's gonna help them now? What the hell?
So you're saying nerdy, bespectacled Kurt Russell's character is going to be the hero of the movie? With Halle Berry? And I remember I was like, okay.
Yeah, I was like,
I guess Tango and Cash is going to save the day. But, and look, in my mind, I kind of wanted John Leguizamo's character to kind of be like a leftover from Die Hard 2. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, where he was one of the henchmen in that movie, and then
he was the mole.
yeah, he came to the side of good in Executive Decision. But Seagal dies in the first 20 minutes. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
The second thing was, as mentioned, September 11th, was after September 11th, I remember trying to watch this movie and I couldn't. I couldn't get through it. It bothered me. It bothered me so much. I was just like, ugh.
And you know the crazy thing about that too, Swizz, is that there's a particular phrase a particular piece of dialogue that one of the terrorists says that's just like, yeah, that's a bit foreboding. He says, we will take this plane into the belly of the infidel, into the belly of this beast. And it's like, yeah.
Oof.
A little too close to what happened. Yeah.
I can't rock with you, Terrace. I'm gonna blaze on over here. I can't rock with you no more. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna turn that off. Yeah.
Yeah. But the third thing, which was the funniest, and I've only met one other person who caught this like I did, and that was my buddy Vince. In the movie, if you go back and watch it, Halle Berry has a bit of a mustache.
Really?
Yes, dog.
No.
Yes, dog. Yes, dog.
Because this was like Halle Berry at that pure and innocent stage, like post Last Boy Scout and Boomerang, when she was like the finest honey you had ever seen.
Yeah.
I can't believe that she had a mustache. No.
She had a little bit of a mustache, dog. She had a little bit. So much so, like I said, when I mentioned it to Vince, he was like, God damn, I thought I was the only one who noticed it. And we both thought we were crazy. But look, the funny thing about this is, apparently this is not something new, because when she did Boomerang with Eddie Murphy and and Martin Lawrence and Robin Givens and so on and so forth, all the actors in that movie, when she did Boomerang, supposedly Eddie Murphy's joke behind her back was to refer to her as Senor.
Oh, no. Oh. See, now I'm curious to go watch that just to see.
Yes.
Cause that was the black Barbie doll right there. You kidding me?
Well, actually probably Executive Decision was after her debut as that, after Boomerang and after that comedy she did with Tommy Davidson or whatever.
You're Living Large or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It was after that period, after Crackhead and Jungle Fever, and kind of in between her being the young starlet. Like, she might have been 30 then. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She might have been 30 then. She's 50-something now. She was kind of in between that era where, to be honest, there might have been some replacements. Like, think about it. The actress who played alongside Wesley Snipes in Passenger 57.
Oh yeah.
She was like a Halle Berry, like Avatar. You had Michael Michelle coming along at this time. You know what I'm saying? So some other actors might have come along and course corrected her, as they like to say on as far as that's concerned. So who knows? I don't know. Yeah, man. She was a mustachioed Halle Berry at that time, dog.
Oh,
It wasn't sexy. I'm gonna be honest with you. It wasn't sexy, dog. Just a bit of quick trivia that I came up with, and this is something that me and Warren have talked about. Warren actually brought it up as a point of conversation. Mm-hmm. So if you go back to Die Hard in 1983, 88, 1988.
Yeah.
John McClane, right? Mm-hmm. Most of your action heroes are going to be either named John or Jack.
Absolutely. That's correct.
So
yep.
You got John McClane, you got John Cutter in Passenger 57.
Jack Traven in Speed.
Jack Traven in Speed. Even the character Jack Bauer on 24, which is essentially Die Hard on a TV show.
Right, yes.
You know what I mean? And your boy Channing Tatum's character, we're going to talk a little bit later on about White House Down. Channing Tatum's character in White House Down is named, I think, John Cale.
And also, which we'll be discussing very shortly, perhaps after this, Harrison Ford in the movie Air Force One, John Marshall.
John Marshall. Yeah, so John is a go-to, John and Jack are go-to names for strong, resilient, heroic types. That's almost always what they go to. You're like, I mean, it's just over and over and over again. And there are other names, that you see, like, for instance, names that suggest sensitivity, names that suggest innocence, names that suggest intelligence. You see those names kind of repeat over and over again as well. But moving on from an executive decision to our number 7 spot is, and again, this quality's dropping now. It's dropping. 1997's Turbulence.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
I think I've seen this one time, and we joked that you only really need to see it one time.
Barely. Exactly. That's it.
Yeah.
Ugh.
But this is one of several Die Hards on a plane. Passenger 57, Executive Decision, Air Force One, and then Turbulence. But maybe like a sea-level movie. Lauren Holly plays the stewardess, who's basically battling Ray Liotta, who's this crazy person on the plane. And he's trying to take the plane down, I guess. I can't even remember the plot.
It's like, I think he's being transported like he's a maximum security prisoner that they happen to just he's so dangerous they have to transport him by himself on this 747. What?
Yeah. I think you're right. And this is during the period in the 90s where Ray Liotta, there are a lot of thrillers about, and we're going to get into, just for anyone who's listening, at some point we're going to get into, this is, like we're talking about, it's Die Hard, but on a blank.
Yeah.
We're going to do an episode where we do the blank from hell.
Yes.
The ex-wife from hell, the babysitter from hell, the roommate from hell.
Yeah, the co-worker from hell.
Co-worker from hell. The adulterous relationship from hell.
Oh, yes.
Where it just goes off the rails. And so this was during the period when Ray Liotta was in this. He's also in Unlawful Entry, playing like an unhinged person who just won't stop. And Kurt Russell is actually in that with him, along with Madeline Stowe. But yeah, I remember seeing this. And at the time, I kind of had the hots for Lauren Holly. I always thought she was kind of sexy.
Yeah, sure.
And that was kind of she got cast as that kind of a figure in a lot of movies.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Turbulence was not great and was clearly like a Die Hard on a plane. But the thing about that is anything on a plane is kind of interesting. Anything that puts people in a confined space. Like the bus on Speed or on the plane, it's like, okay, there are only so many places you can go. So you really have to try to be, maybe unsuccessfully so, be creative about what you do with the plot because there's only so many places you can go. Either the plane's going to land like it did in Passenger 57 or it's going to crash or somebody's going to get, they're going to, crack the, the wall of the plane and the pressure's going to go and then they're going to get sucked out. Something's going to happen.
Yeah.
Something's going to happen. But Turbulence in 1997, and I don't even remember who directed it or anything like that. It's just, yeah.
Exactly.
But number 8 is the aforementioned Air Force One. That was actually, I'll go on the record as saying, I think that's Harrison Ford's last good movie.
And I'd be apt to agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. 1997, Ford plays John Marshall, the president. You got Gary Oldman as the Russian terrorist. Again, terrorist, bad guy with an accent. Glenn Close is in that, isn't she?
She sure is.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Like she's the one in the Situation Room, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think she's either the Secretary of State, or I don't think she's the Vice President. She might be the Vice President. One of those, to where she's the highest ranking person in the Situation Room. And he had Harpo as an errand boy just running back in. Boom. Hey, the president, he said that he wants us to lay the plane. Boom. Hey, the president said he want me to do this. Come on, Harpo. Dang, Harpo.
Who is Harpo? Who is Harpo?
Harpo from The Color Purple. The actor who played Harpo, Harpo.
Oh my God.
Why they had him play the errand boy? That was his whole job, yo.
Oh my God.
Even in the theater, I was 17 to myself. Damn. Come on, Harpo.
Come on, Harpo.
But yeah, man.
But that's another one where it's like, okay, some guys just infiltrate Air Force One? Really?
Hey, don't, Swizz, don't do it, man.
Hey,
don't,
man.
I'm begging you, like the hostage in an action movie. Don't do it. I beg you, don't do it.
And then I just, wow. Gotta go.
But no, man, this movie right here, man, it's so taut. It's directed by Wolfgang Petersen, okay? And we're talking about Wolfgang Petersen, the director of not only this, but In the Line of Fire, Das Boot, one of my favorites of all time.
Yeah.
He has experience with choreographing and directing action within a confined space, because there's very little difference between an airplane and a submarine. Both are long tubes, and there's not a lot of places you can go, but somehow Peterson makes it work. And I will say this, as ridiculous as the plot may seem, as you're pointing out, man, when Gary Oldman and those Russian terrorists first take over that plane,
yeah,
there is no other rousing action scene that will get your blood pumping. The music is going, like from the outset where they roll the smoke grenade up, and Gary Oldman's like, he counts in Russian. 1, 2, 3. And they rush the armory and they grab the vest and the machine guns. And everybody's like, what's going on? What? Wait a minute. They're smoking the cabin. And then one of the Russians like, do-do-do-do-do-do. And then that music comes up.
Yeah.
And they take over the plane. Ooh, wait!
Yeah.
You want to talk about a thrilling action scene? Every time I see it, that will have me on the edge of my seat, like, holy shit. Hell, that's how you direct action, man.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that mano a mano exchange that Gary Oldman, who I think is very short, and then Harrison Ford, who I think is probably 6 feet, where he jacks him up and he says, you think you're not a terrorist just because I use a gun or I use a bomb and you use a smart bomb? You think you're not a terrorist? And so I really like the idea that they actually had a little bit of serious politics in there in terms of their motivation. And this is, if I'm not mistaken,
okay,
this is a long list of Gary Oldman playing really great villains in the 90s, maybe starting back with Leon, or Leon the Professional, and then also in this, he goes on in the Book of Eli. He plays a villain. He's actually a villain in The Hitman's Bodyguard with Sam Jackson and Ryan Reynolds. I've realized I can't say that The Hitman's Bodyguard is good. But I like action comedies.
Yeah.
So I kind of give them all a chance. And, you're going to have a laugh moment. You're going to have an action moment. You're going to have a laugh moment. You're going to have an action moment. But he plays that character in that. And he doesn't play a villain, but he plays like a hero, with certainly a flawed hero with feet of clay in Romeo is Bleeding.
Okay. And then you got him also in True Romance as the quirky, whack-ass drug dealer.
Yeah, you see the fine bitch, right? And then the fine bitch, you pick it up, right? This is the fine bitch, right? So he really kind of carries that kind of thing in the 90s, and this is definitely the ultimate example of it, where, he's maybe not A-list himself, but Harrison Ford is certainly an A-lister at that point.
At that time, yeah.
Yeah, and Glenn Close is an A-list star, at that point in the 90s as well, which is hence why she's the highest ranking person in the, in the Situation Room. But a fun movie, definitely Die Hard on a Plane with a slight twist to it, and that actually carries us well into our number 9 spot, which has 4 movies in it. So this is a number 9 spot is going to be Die Hard at the White House. So you got so you got White House Down with Channing Tatum and Jamie Foxx.
Oh.
You've got Olympus Has Fallen with Gerard Butler and Aaron Eckhart, and I forget who the villains were.
I don't even know. I forgot myself.
I think they were just generic Asian terrorists, if I'm not mistaken. Uh-huh. And then Olympus Has Fallen was so successful, they did London Has Fallen as the sequel with Morgan Freeman as the president yet again. And then they did a third one.
Uh-huh.
So this is like Die Hard. So you had Die Hard at the White House. Then you had Die Hard in London.
Yeah.
Then the third one was Angel Has Fallen. I don't know where that takes place, but essentially it's Gerard Butler's character, the John McClane stand-in, but he's been accused of being a traitor, so he's on the run, so to speak.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So, but they actually did 3 of them. Now, I'll say this.
Okay.
White House Down is not good. But it was entertaining. Channing Tatum was horribly miscast.
Yes.
He is an athlete and he's a super built guy and he's got charisma. But I just didn't believe he was smart enough to do any of the things that he was doing. I just did not believe him at all. At all. And Jamie Foxx was actually pretty good as kind of like an Obama-like president.
I was going to ask, what did you think of that? Do you think in the wake of Obama, that made it more plausible, having Jamie Foxx as the president?
Well, we had black presidents before. Morgan Freeman was a black president in Deep Impact.
Deep Impact, yeah, you're right.
This is post-24, so, Dennis Haysbert was president in that. So, we had presidents of color at that point on film and on TV, but he was clearly doing an Obama.
Yeah.
They have a point where, they're like alone in the elevator shaft or whatever, he and Channing Tatum. And Channing Tatum said, you wanted to be president, because he said, I guess you wanted to be president because, you wanted to, lead the country. Or, he gives him some kind of an empty compliment. And Jamie Foxx says, no, I wanted to be president. I ran for president because I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to make change, and you could almost hear, I wanted to run for president because I wanted to make change and I wanted to make a difference. And, you can almost hear him kind of going into like an imitation Obama. But Channing Tatum's character is John Cale. His daughter's trapped in the White House because she's on a tour.
Uh-huh.
And the terrorists take over the White House and they have her. And Channing Tatum's outside the White House and somehow manages to get in because he's like an ex-Secret Service who's kind of been dishonored or whatever. And so he's kind of on the...
Aren't they all?
They're all. Yeah, they are. But it's not terrible. But Olympus Has Fallen is considered the better of the 2 White House movies with Gerard Butler as the Secret Service guy. Again, something happened and the president's wife died in a car crash and he's dishonored and his boys and one of his boys who's still working in the White House, of course, is a turncoat and is the traitor.
Right.
I would recommend Olympus Has Fallen over White House Down, and clearly it was more successful because, it got 2 sequels, out of it. So, but that's Die Hard at the White House. Last but not least is Skyscraper from 2018. You've never seen it, right?
No, and the main reason why I didn't see it? The main reason I didn't see it was not only is the Rock and the Rock, he's all right for what he does, but the main reason is it is just clearly Die Hard.
No,
clearly.
No. Yeah,
no,
they're not even pretending. They're not even pretending.
Like, damn.
But it's and I think if I'm not mistaken, The Rock's character's name is Will.
Will.
As in like, will or, fortitude or whatever, but his character's name is Will. He is a former like tactical SWAT guy.
Of course he is.
He in the beginning of the movie, he's trying to stop this guy who's holding his family hostage, and the guy blows up the house and blows part of his leg off. So The Rock's character has a prosthetic leg.
Okay. Oh no.
And that's clearly a device so that he can't be quite, you know what I'm saying? Otherwise, it's like, of course The Rock killed these motherfuckers and saved the day. He The Rock. Look at him. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So they had to give him a handicap. So he has this prosthetic leg, which comes into play many times throughout the course of the movie. And he leaves the SWAT or whatever and starts his own security business. And some buddy of his from his SWAT days is working for this Japanese company, where I think it's Japanese, where they built this huge skyscraper, and it's a smart building. Mm-hmm. So everything in the building is running like a smartphone. I mean, everything is integrated. If a fire starts on this floor, it puts the fire out and isolates it so it can't go any farther. Like, it's just, the whole building is like a technological miracle. And so he's going there to try to help this Japanese businessman with the security in the building. And then the terrorists come in, and his family's in there, and he gets separated from his family, and then he gets back to his wife, but they got his daughter, and then it ends at the top of the movie, and the main terrorist guy is, he's got an accent, and the movie literally ends with him kicking the villain off the building, and he falls to his death in a fiery inferno.
Oh, brother.
And that's the end of the movie. But The Rock is in it. There's some other actors in it that you've seen in other things, and I think Neve Campbell plays his wife.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I hadn't seen her in a while, and she was actually pretty good. Again, it's like a C-level movie, and like you said, The Rock is good for what he does.
Yeah.
Don't give him a lot. Don't give him a ton. Keep him in a narrow lane. He'll get the ball over the red line and get you into the red zone or whatever. But yeah, Skyscraper would definitely be. It's not even like Die Hard on a blank. It's Die Hard. What if you put it in a blender and you put The Rock in there and you put you set it in Japan and you put Neve Campbell in there and you blend it all up and then you put some spinach in and that's your smoothie. You know what I mean? Anyway, let's go over some honorable mentions, man, before we finish up, because you said you had a couple, right?
Yeah. One that sprang to mind to me was Masterminds, and I think that came out in the early, maybe 2000. Because the whole thing of like Die Hard at a school, it's like Toy Soldiers reminded me of it, and it has Patrick Stewart in it, along with some other kid actors.
Okay.
And so it's kind of like this PG-13 light version of Die Hard at a school, and they're trying to outsmart Patrick Stewart, who's taking over this school, but I think they're doing it through like computer means, like digital means.
Okay.
And it's like one of those early digital movies where nobody quite knew how the internet quite worked and computers, so they're just taking a wild swing at it just to make it work. And it's like, okay, all right.
Yeah. Yeah, I vaguely remember that. And as a matter of fact, you referenced that to Toy Soldiers as Die Hard at a School. For whatever reason, I always got, because it's been so many years, I would get Toy Soldiers, the plot of Toy Soldiers, and the plot of Red Dawn mixed up. You know what I mean?
Almost the same thing, yeah. Almost, yeah. Wolverines!
Yeah, yo. Oh, man. And I think we also talked about, too, as far as honorable mentions, The Rock. With Nicolas Cage and Sean Connery.
Sean Connery and Ed Harris.
And
Candyman.
Tony Todd. I want my
fucking money.
I want my money. and David Morse. It's been an honor to serve beside you. Mexican standoff.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
The Rock is an honorable mention. Would you consider Con Air to be an honorable mention?
That was one I hadn't considered, but it has a lot of the same elements because it takes place on the plane, and they do have to land the plane for a little while, just like Passenger 57, before they get back up in the air.
Yeah.
I would almost say no. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Just nah.
Okay. All right. And it seemed like there was one other one that we were talking about as an honorable mention.
I'm trying to think, because it really looks like we've headed off most of them. I mean, unless you really think about the really C and D level ones, you know what I'm saying? Oh man.
Yeah, maybe I'm reaching, but I think we have kind of covered the glut of Die Hard movies. And to go back to the actual Die Hard sequels that they did, Die Hard 4, and didn't they do a fifth one?
Yes, they did. Yeah.
Those movies were trash. It was as if they had never seen a Die Hard movie. And it's like, no. You can't make Die Hard like every other movie in the 2000s. You know what I'm saying? With the technology and with the no sense of humor, and make it all gritty. And now John McClane is kind of like this stoic action hero. That's not what those movies are. That's not what they do. That's not what they're about. And they don't feel anything like the original Die Hard movies. And maybe that's a sign that you just can't do it anymore. You know what I mean?
That was one of the questions I was going to posit to you, man. You know, given that action movies have definitely changed and we're in the midst of like, you know, superhero franchises and, you know, the Fast and the Furious franchise where fucking cars are swinging off ropes over suspension bridges and jumping through buildings, where it's like your suspension of belief is challenged to the point where it's like, could you really believe that one man in the course of one night would be able to survive against this cadre of terrorists? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Would a movie like that be successful today without some other added element? You know what I'm saying?
Well, to some extent, it's almost like The Bourne Identity, where The Bourne Identity actually had a huge influence on action sequences, you know, with the handheld camera and with the quick cuts.
Yeah.
And actually giving real training to the actors so that they really look believable, defeating the people that they're fighting in hand-to-hand situations. And also casting an actor that could seemingly believably come up with the ways that they get out of certain situations. You know, like Matt Damon seemed like he could be crafty enough to kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
John Wick doesn't really think much. He's not a smart hitman. He's just a very good hitman. Mm-hmm. You know, so I don't know. And I remember when they cast Daniel Craig as James Bond, and I remember people or writers, you know, movie writers referring to it as the Bournification of the Bond movies. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like, okay, you took Bond out of the kind of kitschy, kind of, you know, tongue-in-cheek Bond of yesteryear and of the last 30 years, and you made him more gritty and more realistic.
Yeah, lethal. Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually like Daniel Craig is my second favorite Bond now.
Oh, he's great.
Yeah, he's fantastic, but he can't really do gadgets now because it's like, okay, gadgets in the modern world, you can't sell this ultra realism and have him have a watch with a magnet on it, and he, you know, that's just not gonna work.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, yeah, for sure, Die Hard, and I think we'll probably add this in the intro.
Yeah.
Die Hard is the movie that launched 1,000 movies, yo. You know what I mean? It's either the face that launched 1,000 ships. It is the movie that launched 1,000 movies, yo.
That concludes this episode of Sidebar Forever, hosted by Dwight Clark, Swain Hunt, and Adrian Johnson. You can find us online at sidebarforever.com. Any emails or questions can be directed to us at sidebarforever@gmail.com. And also, subscribe to us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.